Broadcasting live worldwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the studios in the wrestling capital of the South, it's another terrific episode of The BENGEBUSTER SHOw. Please welcome your host, Tony Binge.
All right, everyone, welcome to The BENGEBUSTER SHOw. We have got another great podcast in store for you this week, as Chris and I are going to be talking about a bunch of things going on in pro wrestling. But before I get started, I like to bring on my co-host. I'm talking about Mr. Rock and Roll himself, Chris Plano. What's going on, Chris?
Tony, how are you? So great to be back for another program, for another week here. Boy, we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going out there in the professional wrestling world and the music world and everything in between. I'm excited about tonight's show. Man,
I'm telling you, Chris, it's crazy how quick things happen in the world of pro wrestling. I know we talk about this lots on our show as we discuss how pro wrestling can be one thing 1 minute and the next minute something totally different. And I guess but before we get started into the podcast, we might as well go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. Big story dropped yesterday. Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes parting ways with AEW. Chris, that's a major announcement right there.
Absolutely. I think it kind of shocked the wrestling world. It came out on a Tuesday morning early, coming off of a Monday Night Raw. It really was sandwiched right between Monday Night Raw and an AEW Dynamite program, which they're on every Wednesday night from 8 to 10. And it was like, wow, this was kind of some timing kind of stuff, or what's going on here. And there's a lot going on. But yes, was it a shock to the wrestling world? Absolutely. Were things brewing behind the scenes prior to this announcement? Absolutely. For Cody Rhodes, it's an opportunity. I say he has an opportunity, to expand upon his career. He left WWE, back in, I want to say 6 years ago, not probably on the best of terms, but obviously getting an opportunity to go back to WWE to further his career and beyond what he did at AEW. And I know we're going to talk more about this further.
Yeah, I mean, I know it shocked me when I first heard about it. I was like, wait a minute, because, if you go back in time, Cody pretty much helped start AEW, he and a few others, and to hear that he's leaving was definitely a shock to me, Chris. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? But man, wish him the best. I think he's going to do great. I know on our last podcast we talked about how Hardy Boys back together doing their farewell tour, and I know if you guys follow them on social media, they're already putting out some promos on their upcoming appearances. So it's going to be a big deal, Chris. I mean, right now, I know we say this every week, but man, I think right now is a great time to be a pro wrestling fan. There's so much out there going on, and man, I just can't wait to see what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot going on. It seems it's kind of wide open right now for whatever reason. It's wide open. It used to never be this way. I'm not sure really what's going on. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a straight shooter, Tony.
Right. Yeah.
Cody Rhodes, let's be honest. He left WWE not on the best of terms.
Right.
He had his burr up, his know what.
Mm-hmm.
And what does he do? Finds Tony Khan. Listen, the only reason AEW exists is because of the Khan family.
Right.
Beyond that, AEW would not exist. So they found a family, they found a guy, they found an owner, Rhodes, with the Young Bucks and Omega and these other guys, you know, because they wanted to bring an alternative for wrestling for fans. And they did. They did. You know, where it's going, I don't know. You know, it's kind of like AEW is an alternative to WWE.
Yeah.
And AEW is in second place. They dropped, you know, TNA Wrestling to third. WWE still on top, you know, and AEW, what have they done? They've stolen some WWE talent. They've stolen some, you know, old talent from the NWA, and it's like, you know, it's an interesting concept, is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I really think Cody Rhodes used the Rhodes name, you know, as a marketing tool. You know, and he's got some business sense to him, following in his father's footsteps, paying homage. You know, and he did. You know, he has. I've always felt AEW has this kind of NWA, WCW thing hanging over its head, because he carries the Rhodes name. You know, and then he brings in, you know, who Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Sting. I'm probably missing a name or two. Diamond Dallas Page and Jake Roberts, though he was mostly WWF. And, you know, you start bringing in all these old timers, and it's like, well, this is like the old days, you know,
right,
of wrestling to an extent. You know, so you know, the only thing I fear with Cody Rhodes is this. Listen, he's a main eventer on AEW. He's not a main eventer in the WWF. Period.
Right.
And he never will be. And Vince McMahon will make sure of that. And that's what scares me, is he's going to go back and Vince might put him upper mid card. I just don't see it, that he is going to main event one of the top 4 pay-per-views in the WWE. I might be wrong. I don't know. That's just me.
Right.
Talking out of nowhere. I just don't. I mean, I don't know. It's like, you know where I'm coming from a little bit here? I mean,
right.
And if he does, I could just see him just getting squashed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know,
so that's where I'm coming from with the whole thing of what could happen here.
Right. And I think another reason maybe for Cody leaving is pretty much AEW has got this one thing that they do every week. There's a doorbell ringing, and every week there's somebody new coming in. When you have so much new talent coming in, and you only have a certain amount of time on TV, how is it even possible for all those guys to get over if it's just a big cluster of talent? I think that might be another issue there. But and I'm also hearing rumors that WWE is in the works of trying to re-sign Stone Cold Steve Austin to WrestleMania. I think at this point in time, if you go back and look, Chris, and think about this for a minute, WWE done a lot of fat trimming over the last several months. Now they've brought back Ronda Rousey. Ronda and Charlotte Flair are set to headline WrestleMania. I've heard Ric Flair say this on many occasions, and it could, I mean, he says that right now the women are more over than the men. And it just seems like right now, you know, I'm a wrestler and I've been in this business for a long time, but I don't religiously watch the products anymore. But when I do watch it, it just feels like there's not. It's like, you know, in the 90s we had those stars like Stone Cold and Ric Flair and The Undertaker and Triple H and Shawn Michaels and those kind of guys. Like right now we don't really have that other than Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton maybe.
Right.
So like so I guess at this point in time, right now is probably a good time for Vince to sign Cody Rhodes, because he's basically signing somebody that, if you think about it, like you said, he was kind of a mid-carder there in WWE, and they didn't really give him much of a chance the last time he was there. So I couldn't imagine him going back. But if he did, let's be honest, at this point in time, Cody's more over now than he was then. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes. Obviously, he's got the reality TV show. He's got the game shows that he's co-hosting, and obviously he's branched away from the Stardust gimmick and cemented himself in both singles and tag competition in AEW. I would say more singles than the tag personally, but you have to go back to the history of Vince McMahon as a promoter. And what is he always consistently has done is he has buried other talent from other promotions. And listen, we're talking from Ric Flair down.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, just look what he did to Cody's dad in the '90s. Put him in polka dots.
Right. Put Dusty in polka dots. Paired him at a time in the early '90s with an African American female manager, which was odd for wrestling.
Yeah,
at that time, and kind of made a comedy show out of him in the ring.
Right.
And both his demeanor and the way he wrestled in the ring.
Yeah.
Tully and Arn went to the WWF. What did Vince do to him? He buried him as a tag team.
Yeah.
The list goes on. And, Flair, Vince, to an extent, put Flair over, especially when he first arrived there. He put him over, but then eventually, Flair was, he was there, but you kind of almost had that feeling, well, he's not the top guy. He's there, but he's not, over the top.
Yeah.
So, and I just, when you look at the guys that the WWE has, you look at Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns and all these big guys that they have, long term, where does someone like Cody Rhodes fit? He's 37 years old. Okay, fine. But he's also the guy that played kind of a comedy role as a former wrestler there in the WWE, with his brother. And Dustin's no spring chicken either in his early 50s.
Right.
Where that goes. And Steve Austin's 57. Just step back in the ring. I guess you could.
Yeah.
And, but you're 57 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And Austin's got neck problems and other, knee problems and the whole 9 yards. So, some of these guys, things at 60, he's still doing it, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, at the end of the day, it's, it's a little interesting to see that this is happening. I wish Cody Rhodes the best. I think it's going to work at the very beginning. I think it'll be a pop. It'll be a spike for ratings. But long term, that's a whole nother wait to see what happens kind of story.
Yeah.
You know how it goes in wrestling. What? People get bored real quick. They move on to the next best thing. But here's the thing. Or is Cody Rhodes fishing to try to pull some other talent out of AEW? Another thing that Tony Khan in that promotion needs to worry about as well.
That's true. That's very true. So
if you start seeing a guy get plucked here, a guy get plucked there, well, then something's going on.
Yeah, something
at that point.
Yes, something's definitely in the water that shouldn't be there. That's for sure.
So Cody could also be testing the waters on the other side as well, silently, for some of the other workers in the back. What's going on over there? Kind of thing, So you never know. Would Vince McMahon love to have a Kenny Omega? Probably.
Yeah,
I think Vince is interested in certain talent in AEW. I don't think he's impressed with everything across the board, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Would a Sammy Guevara work well? I would think so. Do you try to bring Jericho back? Well, you bring Jericho back. Well, am I repackaging? What am I doing with him? I mean,
yeah.
So I think Vince is interested in some select talent. I'm not saying he's interested in the whole board. So I think there could be something else brewing there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Just overall, and I think it's going to end up being good for wrestling at the end. I mean, Jericho's 51.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So some of these guys, are up there in age where it's not normal for them to be wrestling. Not that it's not normal for them to be wrestling at this age. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be wrestling consistently weekly on a national stage.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to, because then the lockers will be like, what's going on here?
Yeah. The locker's going to definitely be confused on, okay, who's over now? Is it who's going to be the next top guy or the next, where do we stand here? There's so many questions to be answered, and all we're going to do is just like Gordon Solie used to always say, you got to tune in next week, fans, to find out. So that's what we're going to have to end up doing.
The timing of this is unique. We're about maybe a month and a half away from WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
Vince has some playroom here.
Yeah.
As far as building this up, do you bring him out at WrestleMania? You bring him out after WrestleMania? You bring him, what do you do? So he's got some moves on the chessboard, overall. Think about it. It's just where's it going? And there's got to be, but listen, this is not something that just cooked up Monday night into the air. This has been brewing for a while, probably a lot longer than maybe people know. And maybe that's why Cody didn't want to have her maybe into the contract. Maybe there's something I don't know. You just never know, and I'm sure it'll all come out, as we go further down the road. But good for wrestling, but now you're starting to see there's some waves in the water now.
Yep,
so
definitely.
Something's up.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it pans out. It's going to be great.
Now
let's move on to our rock and roll edition of our podcast. We're going to be talking about our classic flashback coming up right after this.
This week's classic flashback.
All right, everyone. Our classic flashback this week is Poison's Flesh and Blood. The album was released on June 21st, 1990. It was recorded in Little Mountain Sound Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Their album produced a plethora of hit singles, such as Unskinny Bop, Something to Believe In, and many more. And we're going to get into this album right now. All right, Chris. Poison's Flesh and Blood, 1990, was probably Poison's most successful album. Would you not say?
Yes, I would say so. And, this album is unique in so many ways, Tony, because it came out in 1990 when there was almost a change beginning to happen, within the rock and roll music scene into the early 90s. But it came out at a really unique time because not only did it have so many hits on the album, but it had so many deeper cuts that Poison played live in a concert that I think really brought out the musical performance of Bret Michaels.
Yes, I agree.
Well, beyond just being a singer and a frontman for the band and playing the harmonica. And this really had a bluesy kind of feel to it on a couple of their songs, which, really was, okay, this is more than maybe just a rock and roll band here.
Right, yeah. But you know, Chris, so many things like you said was going on with this album. You know, the album actually was certified platinum 3 times in February 15th, 1990. That right there is saying a lot. But you know, you go back and you look, and this will tell you just how much times have changed now. So when Poison first came out with their album prior to Flesh and Blood, Open Up and Say Ah, it had a picture of the gentleman on the face on the cover with the big tongue, and people went crazy. So they blacked out the tongue and blacked out the hair, and all you had was eyes. And then they fast forward. Now you can buy that album and you can see the whole thing, and it's no big deal. But in 1988, the parents and everybody was going nuts over it. Then you fast forward to 1990, and Poison makes pretty much a basic album cover. The name of the album, of course, Flesh and Blood, and the album cover, or the album mascot, whatever you want to call it. But the picture on it was a tattoo of the name Poison, and then underneath it, Flesh and Blood. Well, the original concept of that was the tattoo was freshly inked and blood dripping down from the words Flesh and Blood. And of course, the powers that be banned that version, said no, we can't have blood dripping off somebody's arm. Chris, when I hear this and I think about this, it's like, okay, so if we couldn't have that, why do we have so many Friday the 13th and so many Halloween movies? Like really, people are upset because there's blood dripping from somebody's arm that just got a tattoo? Like, that's so weird to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Just who knows? It's like I love the way it looks. I love the design. I think it, totally, emanates what Poison is and what was, and I still see it on T-shirts today.
Oh yeah,
to an extent, and old school T-shirts, and people redesign them, and it's kind of like who they were, and it related to the fans, and it is what it is, but. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I just, when you look at the lineup on this album, I mean, it's got, I would say, their second biggest anthem to Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Oh yeah.
With Something to Believe In.
And actually,
on the album, yeah. I mean, that was the second, I say, biggest ballad that they had, overall, Poison, and, but for me, and of course, Unskinny Bop, which they still play.
Oh man, yes,
today.
Well, talking about Unskinny Bop, I love that video. How it starts out, each of them are driving, a hot rod car to the rehearsal, and the classic line is, they pull up and Brett's on his Harley and Ricky's in his hot rod, and CeCe's in his, and CeCe, I think, pulls up in a taxi cab with a couple chicks, and as he gets to the door, the rest of the guys are in their cars looking like, what did CeCe just roll up in? Right. And CeCe has that classic line, well, are we going to dance or are we going to play? And then they go right into the music. And that's one of the things I liked about Poison's videos, is like their videos were like a movie, a small movie, and they all started out with some kind of one of the band members talking, like in Talk Dirty to Me. You got the parents getting the phone call from Brett to their daughter, and the mom's like, that Brett sounds like such a nice boy, and then and then the camera goes to Brett, and he's got that look in his eye, and he goes, you hear the girl in the background, and then he goes, hit it, CeCe, and then they go right into right into the song. So that's one of the things I like and I miss so much about MTV in the 80s. It's like if a hit came out, it had to have a video. It had to.
Right.
and I like the videos with them playing on stage and kind of show you what the tour is about. But I love those videos that were like little movies that you like, you're actually seeing the song portrayed in sometimes bad acting, but a lot of times good. And I always miss that. That's like one of the best memories of my childhood.
I know. Absolutely. And Tony, I look down the lineup. I know we've touched upon Unskinny Bop is something to believe in, but God, some other great songs by Poison on here that I love. Let It Play, Life Goes On, of course, Ride the Wind, which they still keep in the set list. And then you've got some other ones like Ball and Chain, and then Poor Boys Blues. That's Brett's song, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it with the harmonica. And, there's just a lot of deeper cuts on this album that they could almost pull them out of the set list on any night. And I think the fans would still be pleased. Yeah.
And Chris, you and I are, most of the time, every time Poison comes around the Charlotte area, we always, tend to be there and attend the show. But I remember this had to be probably, I don't know, in the early maybe 2001 to 2003, somewhere in that time frame. And I remember there in Charlotte when Poison came out and they opened up with Ride the Wind. And man, I was like, I never really cared for that song earlier until I heard it live. And then once I heard it live, I'm like, man, this song is awesome. And now and like you said, it's one of their top in their top set list on their shows. And I absolutely cannot wait to attend the stadium tour this year. And hopefully they'll add a few more songs to their set list, maybe something deeper that they haven't played in a while. That would be pretty awesome. But I'm definitely looking forward to that. And as a matter of fact, Chris, I'm I have booked me. Now, listeners at home, when I say this, they're going to be like, "Oh, he's just like Ric Flair. He's blowing smoke and he's putting himself over." But Chris, if you're going to go to L.A., you got to live it up. You got to do it the right way. So I have booked. I am going to L.A. in August.
Oh, you're going to do it.
I'm going to go. I booked me a house, and Chris, guess where the house is at?
Oh man. It's right around the corner from the Whiskey Go-Go.
No, better than that.
All right.
My house that I rented is up in the Hollywood Hills. Chris, I'm gonna be up there with the movie stars. I'm gonna be when the house I rented. When I open up my bedroom window in the morning, the first thing I'm gonna see is the sun coming over the Hollywood sign right there up in the Hollywood Hills.
Oh man,
dude, you talk about Pimp Daddy. It's going to be a Pimp Daddy going on. It's going to be. I can't wait. And the crazy thing, Chris, unless you get your ticket, which I hope you do, but if you don't, I'm gonna be doing this trip solo, man. Ain't nobody going with me. Family don't want to go. Kids don't want to go. But man, I've got to do this. I love LA so much. So I came across this house a few months ago and booked it with my family. But for June, we were originally going to go in June. But now they have all backed out. They're all wanting to do other things. My daughter's turning 21, so she and her friend are going to go to the beach. My wife and my son, they want to go to a beach. I said, hey, that's fine. You go to the beach. Come with me to L.A. L.A.'s got the best beaches in the world. No, my wife says she doesn't want to make that 5-hour plane ride. I'm like, all right. She tells me, just go see Motley Crue, go have fun. So I am going to go and I'm going to do this, man. So hopefully, Chris, you can get everything straight and lined up and you can come with me. And we'll be doing the podcast live from the Sunset Strip, baby.
Right, and by the way, I think the stadium tour is cutting through SoFi Stadium at the same
yes
time that you're there.
How ironic is it that Motley Crue's playing the same week I'm going to be there? I planned that,
and then I'm sure there'll be some other really good local shows around on the Strip as well going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, and who knows, man? You never know. Motley Crue might be making a little stop. I'm sure Tommy will probably be coming in to the Whiskey Go-Go and partying and hanging out. So I'm excited, man. I can't wait. I'm going to be there for like 5 days, and it's just going to be, I'm going to have the time of my life.
Man, that sounds like a freaking blast. And yeah, there I see it, late August. Yeah, a Saturday show, August 27th.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're actually in San Diego the next night, just right.
I'm telling you, Chris. Down
the road.
The Binge Buster Binge and Plano World Tour, baby. LA out west. Hey,
yeah.
Listen, you and I go out there.
LA to San Diego the next night's only 120 miles south. That's really nothing. That's only 2 hours, man.
2 hours. And on top of that, Chris, I found this website. I'm not going to say the name of it on air because I'm not going to give them a free plug. But I found this website that you can rent like cars, and it's not like it's not like rent a car and those kind of things. This is like a little website that you can go and you can rent people's actual cars, right? So I'm going to go in there. I'm by myself, so I'm going to rent me a Corvette, and dude, I'm going to be cruising the Sunset Strip. It's going to be freaking cool.
Wow, man, that's wild, man. All right, well, you're twisting my arm, pulling my leg here. We'll have to talk more off the air. Think about this on more firmer details.
Yes, you're going to love it. If you go, man, I'm telling you, LA won't be the same when the Carolina boys leave. I'm telling you that right now. It's going to be great.
That's wild. I
can't wait.
All right,
so yeah, that's my summer plan. So I'm excited about that. But man, I'm telling you, I'm more excited about when we talk about music and wrestling. It just, man, I still get goosebumps when we talk about certain things, and I'm like, and my wife always tells me, "You're living in the '80s. You're living in the '90s." Brother, that's when things were good. And speaking of the 90s, what about the Super Bowl halftime show, Chris? Did that not bring back some memories for you?
It did. Tony, the Super Bowl, I mean, let's be honest, it was it was the Bengals and the Rams, and it was well watched. But yeah, hey, I thought the halftime show did well. I know there was a lot of criticism going into the halftime show, and hey, they did well, man. Dr. Dre got out there, Eminem, Mary J. Blige. I mean, they did their thing. I thought it was well choreographed, well put together. They played some old school stuff, and it worked at the end of the day. And I think they all did well. I mean, listen, we know a couple of them are outside of their prime, and we get it. But hey, man, they rolled back the memories a little bit, and I felt like I was back in college a little bit. Hearing some of those songs.
I did too. I was like, man, of course, in the '90s, I wasn't tremendously into rap. I did listen to a little bit, but you can't help but tap your feet when you hear that beat line from Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, man. It's like, and Snoop's out there doing the sea dance, man. He was just, I mean, everybody was having a good time, and I may be wrong, but Chris, watch and see, this halftime show is going to spark a tour. I'm telling you, there's going to be a tour.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's going to be a tour, and as a matter of fact, I saw that Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube are actually coming to Charlotte, I think in May. So it's getting there.
Oh, yeah, and that's what usually happens, off of this stuff. So, I mean, they know what's going on, and all that good stuff. So, again, they know. I mean, so they're going to springboard off of this and do a tour of some sort to capitalize. Oh yeah,
there it is. I'm telling you, it's going to be interesting to see just how that plays out, man. I can't wait to. I'm telling you, man, Chris. Everybody's been shut down for 2 years. This summer, it's going to be wide open, man.
It's going to be on.
It's going to be wide open.
It's going to be on.
It's definitely going to be on. But you know me, I always talk about trips. I'm always going somewhere, and over the next few months, I'm going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, coming up in May. going up there or out there for a few days with my wife, and she wants to go to some little convention, and we'll do the convention during the day, and then at night we're going to hit up the streets. I'm hoping to go to Kid Rock's bar one night and hang out there, and because I know there's always somebody there hanging out, so I'm excited about that. That'll be fun. And then October, I think we're going back to Covington, Georgia for a few days, but I'm really looking forward to August, man. Los Angeles, California, it's going to be on fire, man, for sure.
Oh, I know it's going to be. I know you're going to be ready, and you're twisting my arm as we speak.
I keep sweating up, man.
You're a good salesman over there.
I'm telling you, Chris. You go to LA with me, you'll want to get a house there. It's going to be fun.
Oh gosh, okay. But no, absolutely, something I can look into, and we can see what we can drum up here.
Yeah, that'd be a fun time, for sure. The other thing is that I want to bring out is our good friends over at the NAWA. They've got a big show coming up March the 5th at the American Legion Hall in Lenoir. It's Thunderdome 3, and if you fans don't know what Thunderdome is, it's 2 teams, 1 winner. It's kind of like War Games, but with 1 cage. Matter of fact, as I'm recording this podcast, the promoter just sent me a lineup of the matches that are going to be taking place. Now, the show starts at 3:00, and tickets are on sale now, and of course you can buy them at the door. But we're going to have Thomas Extreme versus Jet Morris, Zay versus Max Carnage, Jeff Hart taking on James Brody, Golden Gladiator number 2 with Austin Steele, and the Sheik taking on Little Donnie. Cage match, Ted versus Jaggers. And then the Thunderdome 3, the Moonshine Express, and the Burke County Boys taking on Myrick Moore, AJ Frost, Squeaks the Clown, Terrific Tony, yours truly, and Thunderfoot. I'm telling you, man, it's going to be a wild night. And then in the main event, Johnny Ryder versus Power, with Golden Gladiator number 2 as a special guest referee, and Austin Steele sitting at ringside watching everything over. I'm telling you, fans, it is going to be a happening night. So you definitely want to get your tickets for that. And hopefully, Chris, I don't get hurt too bad in that cage where I can't go to L.A.
Yeah, you don't get too. Hey, but anything can happen in the steel cage match, Tony. You know how dangerous the match is, and you know every time your music hits and you walk the aisle, what the risks are, but with those risks could come great rewards as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then after that, we have to go back. I got to plug this show. The PWF is coming to Clover High School in Clover, South Carolina, with a huge card. This event is going to be taking place right there at the Clover High School on March the 19th. March the 19th, right there in Clover, South Carolina, just on the outskirts of Charlotte. A short drive anywhere here in the Carolinas and South Carolina, Tennessee. But you definitely want to take this ride, fans, because it's the reunion, as we talked about last week on the podcast, the reunion of the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff. They also going to be having a meet and greet going on, so you can check that out. Also appearing, Demolition Axe, and then Hall of Famers, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and the Enforcer, Arn Anderson. Great night of wrestling action coming to you right there from our friends at the PWF. Chris, I'm telling you, now is the time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's just so much out there for the fans and so much to choose from. And listen, at the end of the day, there's something for everyone. But Clover High School, Hardy Boys are coming. So much big talent from top to bottom. It is going to be red hot there. Jim is going to be on fire. And your first real sneak peeks at Matt and Jeff back in tag team action, off of national television, live and in person. You can't beat it. It's great family fun entertainment. And
Chris, if you're not booked anywhere, you're not, at the Playboy Mansion, or you're not at the, and you're not at some rock and roll festival, you should get in the car with me and drive down, man. We'll hang out with your old friends Matt and Jeff.
Absolutely, we can hang out with the Hardy Boys, talk old times, and I think they both have some flashbacks, and we talk some good stuff. So it'd be a pleasure to see those guys once again. I mean, they've done so much for the wrestling industry, both individually on the tag team level, obviously that's spoken for, and also on the independent level, making their way up. And those guys, at the end of the day, they never, I think, ever forgot where they came from.
No,
how they started,
and I can
and they always come back.
Right, and I can imagine the minute you walk in the door and they see you,
yeah,
the horns will be going off, and they'd be like,
right.
Chris Plano,
right,
and I'm sure they'd be like, you came home.
That's right.
In the broken
That's right.
voice. But yeah, it'd be an awesome time. So I'm looking forward to that. So, all right, fans. Well, we really appreciate you tuning in to this week's show. I know we didn't really touch on any events. We just wanted to kind of talk about the happenings inside pro wrestling. Touch a little bit on Poison, since it was the anniversary of the album turning triple platinum. So I wanted to touch on that. And keep in mind, fans, in the month of March, it's yours truly's birthday month, and we're going to be talking about my career, how I got started in pro wrestling, some of the highlights of my wrestling career, and have a few guests on that have had the pleasure, or maybe not as much of a pleasure, of working with me on shows or in matches, and we'll have some fun stories to share, and a lot more. So I'm looking forward to that coming up in the month of March. Chris, anything else before we go off the air today?
Man, Tony, this has been a great show. And I know for next week's show, we're going to have more on this breaking news with Cody Rhodes and this news with going on in the professional wrestling industry. But great to touch on Poison with Flesh and Blood. And we're talking California and summer concerts and everything else. So exciting time. Looking forward to it. And just want to thank the fans for listening and tuning in every week and taking time out of their schedule to listen to us, kind of banter back and forth and talk about whatever is, the hot topic that week.
Yeah, for sure. Well, fans, thank you again for tuning in. Go like us on our Facebook page, even though I hardly ever update it, but go like us anyway, because you never know. I may put something on there. Who knows? We may have some merchandise coming out here in the next few weeks or so. Just a lot going on in the month of March. I'm looking forward to it. But for my co-host Chris, I'm Tony. We will see you next week here on the Binge Buster Show.
Thank you for listening to the Binge Buster Show. Make sure you like us on Facebook and download us on your favorite podcast platform.